Hello and welcome to Meet Me in Tennessee. I'm your host, Allie, and this podcast is sponsored by the Northeast Tennessee Tourism Association. You can find us online at northeasttennessee.org and on all social media. And today we are sitting down with Tyler Wicks and Adam Thanz with the Bays Mountain Park and Planetarium in Kingsport, Tennessee. Tyler is the Chief Ranger for the park, and Adam is their Planetarium Director. Thank you both for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We're excited to welcome you onto the Meet Me in Tennessee podcast. And to our listeners, Bays Mountain features a 44-acre lake. Please step in at any point if I'm incorrectly citing this information from the website. With surrounding hiking and mountain biking trails, a nature center, state-of-the-art planetarium theater, and animal habitats like wolves, bobcats, raptors, and reptiles. Tyler, can you please tell our listeners about your role with Bays Mountain?
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Ranger. I oversee pretty much all park operations. That's the nature programs, the barge rides, the gift shop, the gatehouse, the trails, and if a toilet gets clogged and there's nobody around to unclog it, that's normally one of my people that goes out and takes care of it. I always tell people everything outside of the nature center is pretty much me. If you go inside the nature center, we have an exhibits department and Adam's Planetarium in there, but I take care of everything else.
Awesome. So if something's happening outside on the trails, you're aware of it.
Well, hopefully.
Awesome. And Tyler, what makes this park so special to Kingsport, locals and visitors from all around?
Bays Mountain is special for one because it's a unique environment there because you're so close to an industrial city and you have this pristine wilderness. When they first came in and surveyed the park, the Audubon Society in the 1960s, they called it one of the most unique examples they had seen in an urban park. We have some areas of old growth forest. We have some very rare plants that grow up at Bays Mountain, and it's just very scenic. I mean, even if you're not into nature, it is a scenic place to come and visit. Yeah. 10 minutes from downtown.
It's truly beautiful. Like you said, you come from big city Kingsport, and just right over the mountain there, you got beautiful preserve.
You would never know you were in Kingsport.
And how long has the park been around? I see it's on your t-shirt there.
Yeah, 1971 was when the park officially opened, but the city of Kingsport actually has owned it since the 1920s. So it has been in public hands for 100 years. And so they didn't use it as a park. It actually, the land mostly sat vacant for the majority of its life there. But there was a movement in the late 60s to turn it into a park, which the city eventually did.
So safe to say it's city owned for the public?
It is, yeah. It's definitely for the public use. Everything we do, we try to center around what is the public going to like? What are they going to enjoy? Are they going to grow to appreciate Bays Mountain?
Yeah, yeah. I love Bays Mountain. And Adam, can you please tell our listeners about your work as Planetarium Director and how folks can come out for solar and night viewing at the planetarium?
Sure. Well, Tyler, yes, you're over the park, but I'm over the universe.
Very true. He named stars and everything, right?
That's a big role, Adam. Master of the universe.
Okay, well, ask my wife, Queen of the Universe. That is her moniker. Hearing that a long time ago. So what we do is we deal with anything that's astronomy or space science related. So of course we have the Planetarium Theater itself, which is in the Nature Center, but we also have some observatories and all the outreach that we do that is all astronomy related. Yeah. Part of what I do is working in the planetarium. So we have planetarium programs all year long for the public, but we also have school groups, which also the Rangers do too. Mm-hmm. And so pretty much all year round, we have school groups come and visit. And so we have great appropriate programming for all of them. And it depends on whatever topic or their needs are. And then for the observing sessions that you mentioned, they are seasonal, but March is a big start for everything for the year. Yeah. So solar viewing is every Saturday and Sunday from 3 to 3:30. Okay. The reason being is it's staffing, but being able to have a little window of time that we can set up a solar telescope, let people look at the sun safely.
Yeah, can you tell us about that? How is that safe? When I first read solar viewing, I thought, are we looking through a telescope right at the sun? Can you...
Right. Well, you got to know what you're doing.
It's really risky for the first person that looks, right?
Yeah. So to do it safely, you have to dim the light of the sun 100,000 times so that it's safe for our eyes. And regardless of what you use, just your eye, binoculars, telescope, you got to dim the light down first. So if you're just using just your eyes, you can use something like these, which are solar glasses.
Cool.
And so you can look at the sun directly with this. But this isn't enough for, say, using this with binoculars or a telescope.
All right, and for our listeners, Adam is holding up a pair of, what would you call these?
They're called solar glasses.
Solar glasses. Okay.
Solar glasses. This allows you to see the surface of the sun safely anytime.
Because it's dimming that light.
100,000 times.
Okay.
Yes. So for those who don't have the visual view here, and they look kind of funky. They look like those old 3D glasses, you know, but instead of the red and green anaglyph glasses, these are a special material. I don't even want to say the word as to what they're made out of because people will confuse it with something they can buy in the grocery store. And
Oh, then we won't even mention it.
It's not even the same stuff. So it is a material that is housing inside two plastic layers the filtering material that dims the light safely.
Can folks pick these up at the Nature Center?
Yes, we actually do sell these at the gift shop at the park.
And we will be starting to sell them at the Gatehouse starting next week.
Okay, I was going to talk to you about that. If something that was going to be worked out.
Start next week, you will be able to pick them up at the Gatehouse. So even if you don't have time to come up to the top of the mountain, you can stop down at the bottom and pick them up at the gate.
Pick them up and just drive right back around and save you a lot of time. Yeah.
Awesome.
So getting back to what we were saying, so you want to be safe. You always want to be safe. The sun is too bright to just look at. An eclipse, which we'll talk about later, it's like you want to look at the sun.
Yeah.
There's nothing dangerous about an eclipse. It's just, it makes you want to look at the sun. So you can do that at any time. Now, your eye cannot see tiny details just by looking. With the dim view of the sun, you're not going to see tiny details on the surface of the sun. So you need a telescope. Those have a very large version of this material before the telescope.
Interesting. Adam, I'm just curious on a tangent. What is your passion for astronomy? What led you to being a planetarium director? Do you have a background in astronomy?
Yes.
Science?
So I'm unusual in the planetarium community as far as the profession, that my interest and all of my degrees are actually a perfect fit. Things may be different nowadays, but it used to be you could just have the interest in astronomy and then work in a planetarium. But I did go to school and have degrees in astronomy and degrees in education.
Wonderful.
Which is what we do.
Yeah.
I also had done, I was just telling
Mitch,
thank you.
our lovely producer.
Yes,
Shout out.
off screen. But my specialty, my focus for my master's was instrumentation, is instrumentation. So, equipment.
Oh, I went to Bluegrass because we're in North
Oh,
Carolina.
no, not musical instruments, but the scientific instruments. Most people don't realize, they know the Hubble Space Telescope. Well, on the telescope are CCD chips, which is now the same kind of technology that's in a digital camera or your phone.
Okay. This is some major astronomy talk, but I'm geeking.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
So back then, these were like extremely rare and expensive. They were actually handmade.
No way.
Handmade. There was a process that was handmade. There was only one person, I cannot remember her name, a woman who hand thinned them with a chemical. She was the only one in the world that could do this correctly. And so they had the CCD chip with a chemical process on one of those spin art things. The little spinny thing?
Yeah.
So imagine that, thinning it so that the light from a telescope goes through the backside of the sensor. All right. This is innovative technology. This is the beginning of CCDs. 4 of those are put together in a grid in a big housing with electronics. There's 2 of those on the Hubble Space Telescope, or it used to be, the original Hubble Space Telescope. But they made 100 of those because they wanted to have the best 2 on the Hubble Space Telescope. All the others went to universities. Ours was one of them. So my work was to kind of, the precursor of working with it. How could we use it on our telescopes? I went to University of Florida. We had a large observatory. How could we use it on our large 30-inch telescope and that kind of thing to do actual research?
That's so cool.
So instrumentation. So I've always been techie, geeky about that kind of stuff. And I also had a job where we I worked with the one guy for the entire university who repaired all of the AV equipment. The whole school. There's like 50,000 students, okay? That's how big the University of Florida was at that time. It's one guy. I was his helper. So I learned how to repair slide projectors, overhead projectors, cassette players, all those AV equipment from well before your off time.
Needless to say, when a computer breaks at the park, I call Adam.
Me and Jason, right?
Please correct me if I'm wrong.
So
I'm
sorry for the
judging.
tangent. But
No, you're fine. I love learning the background. I imagine you have some involvement in the astronomy club up at Bays Mountain Park.
Jason and I are the liaison. I'm the official liaison to the club. So the astronomy club, they are an astronomy club. We try to keep it as a club, but any of the volunteerism that they may want to do has to go through the city, through the volunteer program. But we work with them. They have their meetings at the park. We do host the public viewings, which I haven't gotten into yet. So like the Star Watch programs, which are currently on the Saturday nights of March and April.
Okay.
Starting at dusk, and they're free.
Are those currently going on with us being into March?
Yep.
Awesome.
So this Saturday we'll have a nice rainy one, but we will have an alternative always in the planetarium if it's bad weather.
Awesome. Star Watch programs. And while we're on that topic, can we talk a little bit about the Totality showing at the planetarium?
Sure. So Totality is a program we produced in-house. It is currently at 48 other theaters in the United States. We distribute worldwide our content.
Whoa, I didn't realize
So,
that.
yeah.
So that was made at Bays Mountain
Yes.
and then distributed out nationwide. That's so cool.
Right. Well, this show is nationwide, but we do have our content all over the world. So this one program, you learn about eclipses, all kinds of eclipses. And our approach has actually been very different than any other eclipse program, which I'm happy to say, because I always like to have kind of an interesting aspect. But then we add a little bit about the local scene. Okay, so what is going to happen? What's the next eclipse? What will we see here? And then we also do a little bit of a star ID, a tour of the night sky. We always do that with any program in some aspect.
Wonderful. So you can come see the Totality program, which is about an hour, and then right after you could do the...
No, so the Totality program actually is about 40 total minutes, 45 total minutes. We have regular programming for that. So during the week, Tuesday through Friday at 4 o'clock, and on the weekends at 12 and at 4. And then at 2 o'clock, we have another program called Appalachian Skies, which is a live tour of the night sky. The whole thing is live. That's the planetarium programs. The Star Watch is in the evening, starting at dusk. It's if it's bad weather. Then we do a totally different program, which is actually an activity and learning about the night sky, but also how to use a star chart.
Awesome. And that's open to the public.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So the Star Watches are free. You can get tickets to the planetarium programs at the gift shop or online through the Civic Rec portal that the city has for ticketing.
Awesome. And Tyler and Adam, so I hear we mentioned the solar eclipse is coming up on April 8th. Yes. What does this mean? And can you share with listeners any viewing tips, which we kind of talked about, wearing the proper sunglasses? And then will Bays Mountain Park have any special event going on?
Okay, so the eclipse is a total solar eclipse coming up, which is a big deal. What's a bigger deal is it's going across the United States. So it goes through Mexico, Texas, and then diagonally across through the Midwest, Indiana, and then all the way up to Maine, right at the boundary between Maine and Canada. So you can imagine a line going across the U.S. like that. We will not be, Tri-Cities will not be on the center line.
Okay.
So we will not see totality. What will be seen here is a partial solar eclipse. 87% of the sun will be blocked by the moon, but not 100%. You got to travel to see that. Local observings, we will not have anything at the park for a number of reasons. The biggest one is we can't handle crowds, big crowds. And we're also, the staff, the planetarium staff, we're going to go see the eclipse. But the Kingsport Public Library will be doing observing. And they won't, that's a free event.
The Kingsport Public Library, okay.
Kingsport Public Library. Also, Sycamore Shoals is hosting something.
Okay.
But since we're city, I'll promote them at Kingsport Library more. And we loan them 2 solar telescopes. So those scopes that are safe, they have 2 of those from us. And then they'll have their own displays and whatnot, but they're staying local to provide that to the public. But quite honestly, if you have the solar glasses, you can be anywhere. It just won't be magnified.
You might go up to Bays Mountain, or not Bays Mountain, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, up to Beauty Spot or Roan Mountain. You might go up to one
It
of those.
doesn't, for the sun, it does not matter. Your backyard, look through a window.
There we go.
It really doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's daytime. It's only nighttime when you need dark skies, then you have to go somewhere dark.
Right. Okay.
So it is accessible. Another way of viewing, most people don't realize it, doesn't cost anything if you already have it. And that's using a kitchen colander. I did not bring a kitchen colander with me, but you know how it has those little holes, you know,
Yeah.
to strain the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hold it up, the sunlight goes through the holes, project onto the ground or a piece of paper, you'd see a whole bunch of holes, and you think those are the holes of the this colander. No, those are actually pinhole images of the sun. They are little images of the sun because it's a pinhole projector effect. So like an ancient camera.
You get the same effect with leaves off the trees too.
Yes.
I've seen that where it projects this image.
But it's really hard to see that until you get to really deep into the eclipse. But with the colander, you see those holes. You see those holes. As it goes into eclipse, those circles become, eclipsed suns. A whole bunch of them. Same for leaves under nature. And there's a lot of nature-related effects with eclipses, total solar eclipses. But you got to be in totality to see it. The temperature drops, the wind picks up, animals react, insects react.
Yeah.
You hear that. Literally, you do. It's
Our
really
last
cool.
eclipse we had, and I can't remember, I don't think it was total, but correct me if I'm wrong.
2017.
Yeah.
It was total,
it was
but
total.
not here.
Oh, okay.
We were like 92%.
At the time, I was a seasonal ranger at Fall Creek Falls, and we were in totality.
You were on the path.
yeah.
Okay.
I remember the
Totality,
crickets
yeah.
started chirping, and it was like,
Yeah, I was
Afternoon.
outside when that one happened. I mean, and the birds started calling. I mean, they thought it was getting dark.
That's right. And, for the artist, what's also cool is the lighting.
yeah.
You were under the shadow of the moon. Okay.
Pink Floyd album.
But the moon shadow is about 150 miles wide.
I'm sorry.
I know the songs you're talking about. But your horizon line is farther. So you were having sunlight come in sideways from all directions around
Unique
you.
perspective for the artist to come out and have this.
The lighting is unique. It is never, you cannot replicate it. It becomes silvery
Yeah.
because it's like having sunrise and sunset at the same time from all directions.
In 2017, the one I saw, that was what surprised me the most is how the air literally looks silver because of
Yes.
the light. I mean, it
Yes.
does. It
It's like
looks silver.
vampire.
Yeah.
It really, it does.
Yeah.
Because it's not twilight per
Yeah.
se, but it kind of is, but it's from two different directions, and so the lighting is totally unusual. We're about 6.5 hours away from Totality for this eclipse coming up. The closest is going to be if you went towards like Indianapolis.
Okay.
Of course, and then there's a whole thing about where do you want to go, and you have to go overnight kind of thing because of the drive and access. But
we're gonna reel it in a little bit and talk about the Tennessee Night Sky Trail. So Northeast Tennessee Tourism recently released the Tennessee Night Sky Trail, featuring 9 unique areas to view the night sky in our region, with 8 of those being wheelchair accessible. What makes Bays Mountain a unique location to view the night sky? And specific to, I'd like to talk about the planetarium, which we have been, and also the other things to do in the park, the wildlife viewing, the hiking, the biking. So once you're there to view the night sky, what are some other things you can do?
Okay. Well, hopefully if the weather's good, we'll be outside viewing the sky. We'll have large telescopes set up. And again, if the weather is poor, then we have an alternate as opposed to just canceling. The park is beautiful at twilight. And I mean, I'll let you talk because I've been talking too much.
Adam's not known for his brevity, right?
No.
The park is beautiful at twilight, like Adam said, and especially right now before time changes, you can come at 6:30 and it's dark by 7, and you still have a whole hour before the park closes. We don't leave the park open after dark. That's pretty much all parks aren't open after dark because it's just generally not safe to have people wandering out in the woods after dark. But we do host special events through the season, and those normally go through the fall, where we do open the park up after dark, and we have our ranger staff there to guide programs and to guide night hikes for the public to experience nature after dark in kind of a controlled setting. It can be very easy to get lost at Bays Mountain after dark. We have people that get lost during the day, let alone at night, and you can't see any landmarks or anything like that.
It's a large tract of land.
It is. It's almost 4,000 acres. It's Tennessee's largest city park, one of the largest in the country, and it's unique because it's long. So, a lot of parks are just kind of blocks of land where they're not necessarily one shape or another other than just a square. Bays Mountain is long like a rectangle, which is unique, but we control or own the whole Bays Mountain watershed there. That was intentional on purpose to make it that long shape. So it's very easy to underestimate how far or how long it's going to take you to get from one side of the park to the other.
And I'm glad you point out, it's the largest city-owned park in the state of Tennessee.
It is.
It's so cool.
The second largest is Warner Parks in Nashville. And there for a while, I think we were going back and forth, but we've kind of really surpassed them now. I think they're about 3,000 acres, and we're about 4. We're always expanding. Anytime any adjacent land opens up for sale, we're always looking at buying it because we want to protect as much of Bays Mountain as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add twilight barges.
Twilight barges. We do twilight barges as well. Forgotten about those. Those start back up in May.
May.
Yeah,
okay.
they're on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday in May. And then we do, Adam's staff actually does canoe and kayaking after dark. When are you going to start those back up?
Jason takes care of those. It's April, May, I think. I know definitely April.
Right.
And they have canoe kayak events, but those are they're daytime.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the evening, but not later. What he does is he pushes the time later. You start at twilight and you get out on the lake at dark. And it is dark when you're out on the lake, and then Hill will do pointing out constellations and talk about the night sky. Those are very limited in space. You have to get your tickets way ahead of time.
Question from a guest perspective, can you bring your own vessel, and do you have rentals available?
We do not have rentals. You have to bring your own.
Bring your own kayak or canoe.
Bring your own kayak or canoe. Yeah, Adam mentioned we're limited on space. So the park is a state natural area, which limits how much we can develop, but just from a geographic perspective, we're built on the side of a mountain. So the space, the number of flat areas is very limited. So we don't have like a big marina or anything that we rent anything out of. So
Awesome.
It's unfortunate, but it's actually a good thing because you don't want things developed, overdeveloped, especially.
Right.
It is not a commercial site.
To preserve the naturalness of the area.
Right. It is a nature preserve, and the lake shore all around. My understanding is that it's critical to not damage that.
Yeah.
Those habitats, and for our guests who may have not, or our listeners who may have not been to Bays Mountain, it's the lake. You have the dam, and then you have all the trails and the habitats surrounding it. It's beautiful.
It is, and something a lot of people don't realize about the lake is just how old the lake is. The dam was completed in 1916, but it was not the first dam to sit there. There was actually a dam before that dam. So, the lake in some form or fashion has been there for probably at least 150 years.
Wow.
So it's a very old landscape. The forests are very old.
Tyler, can you talk a little bit about the amazing wildlife the park has to offer and best practices for guests to respect those habitats?
Yeah, so we've got some really great wildlife. I'm a salamander guy personally, so I'm very interested in the salamanders. Bays Mountain is unique in that it has a very large green salamander population. Any fellow herpers out there listening will know what that means. And it is a unique habitat for them. Of course, in terms of megafauna that everyone's interested in, deer, bobcats, black bears, we have all of those, but my favorite is the beaver. You can't walk around Bays Mountain Lake without seeing the beaver. I can't promise that you will see a live beaver, but you will definitely see where they have been. The beavers have dammed up portions of the lake. They have built lodges. They've taken down trees. But I did have someone tell me the other day that they came in for an early morning hike about 8:30 and a beaver chased them off the trail. So
No way.
you may you may have a wildlife interaction when you come to Bays Mountain. The one everyone's scared of is bears. Here in East Tennessee, we only have black bears, and black bears are kind of wussies. They're not like grizzly bears, which are really mean. If you make a lot of noise and yell and scream at a black bear, he's not going to bother you. He's going to run the other way. The only time I've ever seen a bear, it has been running the other way because it doesn't want anything to do with me.
Us locals think of them as big cats, but yes, if you are unfamiliar with having bears in your territory, in your backyards, like Tyler said, make a lot of noise. It's good that you can always carry a little bell in your backpack.
And I always tell people just to talk. I mean, if you're hiking with a group, it's really easy. You talk. The bear is going to hear you talk.
Hey, bear.
And if you're by yourself, you talk to yourself. It's fine. I promise.
I like to sing when I'm on the trail by myself, or I'll hike with my dog on my leash. But yeah, just making noise. So thinking about those habitats, can we talk about the wolves?
We can. So Bays Mountain has a wolf education program that started in the 90s. Were you there when it started, Adam?
Actually, it started just before
you did.
Yeah.
So we've had wolves on Bays Mountain for a long time, and they exist in about a 2-acre enclosure. And the wolves come to us when they're tiny little puppies that haven't even really opened their eyes yet. And so they live their whole lives on Bays Mountain in that enclosure. And we use them as an education tool to talk to people about native wildlife, but more importantly, about human effects on native wildlife. So wolves were once native to East Tennessee, and we as humans killed them and drove them all out. They no longer exist in our environment, which has ramifications that we are still feeling today. Any one of our listeners who may have hit a deer with their car, you can thank all those hunters many years ago who killed all the wolves. So now there's nobody that eats deer anymore besides us. So you have an overpopulation of deer because you have a lack of a predator, and that's all because of us.
So glad you bring that up. That's always a part of conservation with hunting that I forget to talk about a lot. So
and hunting sometimes gets a bad rap. People are a little leery about hunting, but when it comes to deer hunting, that is us fixing a problem we caused. So we removed the deer's predator, and so it is our responsibility to the environment to rectify that by us going out and serving as a predator for the deer. If we did not have our deer hunters, places like Bays Mountain would not exist in their present form. There's a famous conservation writer who was actually a wolf hunter for the federal government named Aldo Leopold, and he wrote a series of essays that are collected in a book called A Sand County Almanac, and he has a whole essay about how the deer treats the mountain like the wolf treats the deer, meaning the deer go in, and since they eat vegetation, they can decimate an ecosystem because they'll just eat everything and there'll be nothing left. So, the mountain lives in fear of the deer. So it is our responsibility, and I'm not a hunter myself, but it is the responsibility of the hunters to control that deer population and protect the mountain.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that topic up. Deer or the wolves. It's wild to think of a time when they were native here. Like areas like Piney Flats. It was named after. There used to be a large wolf population there that lived back in the pioneer days. They would get up on top of the knobs. Yeah.
Abington is known as the kind of the wolf city, Wolf Hills. So there's a lot of lore locally around wolves. People still sometimes claim to see them. Even though I can promise our listeners that they are not. They're probably seeing a coyote or a coy dog, which is a coyote and a dog mixed together. But we did have coyotes. We had wolves, but no coyotes, and now we have coyotes and no wolves. So nature abhors a vacuum. So something always going to come in and fill it, and that was the coyotes. So.
Yeah, beautifully said. Tyler and Adam, how can guests and locals to the park contribute to good conservation practices when visiting Bays Mountain?
When visiting Bays Mountain, well, the number one thing is please take your trash with you. I don't know.
I was going to say something like that too.
Adam is a daily hiker on our lakeside trail. How much trash do you see out and about in the park?
It varies. Most of it's usually around the parking area, but you see trash, and luckily it's not a problem,
Right.
like it's everywhere kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even in something is a little something, just put it in your pocket.
Pack it in, pack it out.
And
Right.
one of the big problems is, we have very healthy wildlife populations, and the raccoons and the possums will love to go and try to eat the trash. And a lot of times they eat things that are not good for them, which is detrimental to their health. And you may think, well, what do I care about the health of a raccoon? If you have a raccoon that is not in the best health and more susceptible to disease, raccoons carry diseases that can be transmitted to things like your dog. These things that happen in nature are not isolated. They have effects on us as well. We get calls sometimes at the park about people saying, I've got a raccoon in my backyard that is just going crazy. It looks sickly, and it probably has some sort of disease, and you need to keep your dog inside, because if your dog goes out there, it could be a disease that's communicable to them. So caring about nature is also caring about yourself and your pets and your family.
Well said. Yeah, I love that.
A lot of people go to the park, just walk the trails just to be in nature and just enjoy, not the city life.
Right.
Like we're hearing outside our door here.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Keeping those areas protected for future generations.
Yes. And during the pandemic, we were one of the few places that were open, in the sense because you could be outside. And people really appreciated being able to do that. Just they could get out of the house, but they could go somewhere and walk around and just enjoy being out there.
And on that note, Adam, how do you feel that protected green spaces like Bays Mountain, how do you feel like they contribute to the local quality of life for the region, welcoming visitors and locals?
Oh, it's always a plus. Most visitors, especially if they're travelers, but they I've never heard of this place. This is great. We have people who live in the area and are not familiar with Bays Mountain, or they may have heard the name, but they hadn't been up there, and then they see what it is. And it is important to everybody to have natural spaces. If you don't, sorry, this is not right. You have to have access to that.
Yeah, it's
some
natural.
aspect.
It's so important ecologically. Clean water, clean air rely on these green spaces, but just for mental health for people to get outside and, like Adam said, to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life is important. I run into guests all the time out on the trails who will stop and talk to me, and who will say, this is their one time a week that they feel most at peace, is because they're out in nature.
Right.
There's no loud noises or anything. They can just immerse themselves in the environment.
Yeah, it's like connecting with that internal clock that's constantly running.
Sure.
You know?
And of course, you look at the whole region where we live, surrounded by nature, which is fabulous.
We're lucky.
And we are lucky. And I've heard from people who have visited where they're like, they were just impressed by even being on the highway and then seeing trees. So many trees everywhere. That was a surprise to people that we all take for granted, that those of us that live here or have lived here our whole lives. And
if you look at a satellite image of Northeast Tennessee, what you're going to see is a little speck for Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol, and a whole lot of green, because it is just mostly trees.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's great that we do have that. But the fact that we do have public programming and school programming.
Education is a huge
component. Right. And
because like you said, these folks coming from bigger cities, seeing trees is a big deal for them. So knowing how to protect them is a whole nother element.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, we used to get kids from urban cities, not local ones, but like they would do a trip.
We got them last year.
Oh, we did? Okay, I wasn't aware. And these kids are like,
yeah.
It was like a shock to them. And it's unfortunate that it was a shock. But it's great that they were there to experience it.
And last year we got them out on the trails and around the park and put them to work. And like Adam said, we did. We put them to work. They were here to volunteer. They were here to volunteer, so we put them to work. And but there were several of them who've said, I've never seen so many trees in my whole life. There's just trees everywhere.
I worked at USA Raft, and we used to welcome large groups of children from Asheville who had never been on the river, and they would just leave with the biggest smiles on their face, turning those cell phones off, leaving them in the office.
And we talk about education, and parks use a process of education called interpretive programming, and the saying is, interpretation builds understanding, understanding builds appreciation, and appreciation results in protection. So if you can make them understand why something is important, they will appreciate it, and nobody will destroy anything they appreciate. If they appreciate something, they will want to do everything they can to protect it, which is our goal with our programs.
I love that. That's well said also. And just kind of falls in line with building appreciation through awareness. Yes. So before someone can fall in love with someone and protect it, they have to be aware it exists and the benefits of it. So I just wanted to reiterate what you said about taking care of nature is taking care of yourself, because that just really resonates. Yeah,
and it's really intuitive, I think, for most people. I think most people realize, if I dirty up my water, what am I going to drink? I mean, we're not working against the grain here. So it's not, I don't think it's a hard sell for people to appreciate nature. The hard sell is when you ask people to change their own behaviors to protect nature. Everyone wants to do it, but not everyone will do it. And so there are little things you can do. I'll give a plug for the night sky. Outdoor lighting is light pollution.
Yeah.
It affects people's view of the night sky. It also, though, has negative effects on wildlife. I mean, it's a multifaceted problem. And so, something I always tell people, if you want to do something simple, if you've got outdoor lights, maybe turn them on when you need them, but turn them off when you don't. There's no reason to leave them running all night. It's not good. It's not energy efficient. It's not good for the animals, and it's not good for night sky viewing either. So that's a little thing that I think most people could do.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you for sharing that, Tyler. It's something we don't often think about, light pollution.
No, you don't think about it because it's
so
simple.
It is a form of pollution.
And I'll throw this in to add on, and thank you for that. Shield lights. If you see a light source, it's a bad light. Yeah. It's an unsafe light. You see a street light, that's what we call light bombs. It's the old mercury vapor ones that are being phased out now for LED, but the whole thing is light, and if it's foggy, you see that the light, it's not a light cone that goes down, it goes out and it goes up into the sky, and all of that is wasted. But if you're driving at night and you see that light, that's glare. Mm-hmm. It actually makes it harder to see. It is unsafe. And I'm glad they're, transitioning to LED. but they should still have a little bit of a shield. Some do, some don't. But if you see the light source, you should only be able to see it if it's over you, as opposed to when you're
having
driving.
a shield to redirect.
It's even just a little bit of a shield that forces the light downwards. So you see the light illuminating what you want, but you don't see the light. Then you don't get the glare. And it's just little things like that.
Yeah.
And it's not about removing lights, it's just being able to use them properly. But
it's a big problem that nobody thinks about.
yeah, and it does affect human life too.
Oh, absolutely.
Your own health.
Well, because we're kind of animals too, right?
Yeah, not kind of. We are. Member of the great apes, I believe. So yeah, I mean, things that, and that would be another point is, things that hurt nature also hurt us because we are part of nature. I mean, no matter how much of a city you live in, you're breathing air, you're drinking water. I mean, you are a part of the environment. If you pollute your air and you pollute your water, you are going to ingest that, and it is going to hurt you. I mean, there's no way around it.
No matter how much we've domesticated ourselves and built walls, we are still part of nature.
Yes. You can't, unless you carry an oxygen tank around with you all the time, you're always going to be breathing the air and you're going to have to drink the water.
Yeah. And on that note, what are some ways, feel free to share any experiences you have. I know you talked about having the children out for educational programs. What are some ways that you have each given back to the park or local public lands, whether through advocacy, volunteering, or stewardship? And I think the nature program is just a great example because you said the children come out. That's an educational resource. What I'm leading to is how could you act as an example, as a steward for the land to get other folks involved, whether it be through volunteering?
Well, I'll say we try to do as much outreach as possible. I mean, that is, our jobs would be a whole lot easier if we didn't do that. We spend a lot of time doing outreach. So, right now at the park, we're doing a Tennessee naturalist course where students pay. They pay enough money. We don't make money off of it. They pay enough to cover the resources as well as the curriculum. And they come out for, a number of weeks from March all the way through mid-May, every Friday night to learn some new thing about nature. And it's a class of 16. And these students, they walk away with a whole new appreciation for all the natural life. I tell them at the beginning of the course, we're not going to make you experts in anything, but we're going to expose you to everything. And that appreciation, goes off, and all those students are required to do community service hours, nature related in the community. So they go out as an educated force and volunteer at different parks around the region. And we do it every year. So that's 16 students every year that are built to do volunteer work with some background knowledge. And I think from the nature side, that is one of the best programs we have because it sends out educated volunteers into the public. And I know, Adam, you have the Astronomy Club, but you all have the, you do the Star Watches, but you also have Star Fest, which is a conference for astronomy lovers to come to the park.
Yes, it's an annual event. It's 3 days. There is a fee to cover all the meals and all the speakers.
And he definitely doesn't make any money off of it.
I try not to, actually, but, breaking even's good.
Yeah, breaking even's good.
But its purpose is to have people like us that love the night sky or even just the science of astronomy or anything like it and enjoy hearing presentations from people who are experts in whatever the topic may be. And one thing that I've been trying to do for the last number of years is to focus in and have an actual theme, a real theme. So last year was cultural astronomy. So all of our speakers were speaking upon culture's view of the night sky and different cultures. We did have somebody who came through the International Planetarium Society's program to bring a planetarium to the United States. It was not Bill Nye, but this person was from Australia. and he was an expert on Aboriginal astronomy. The sky lore.
It's very interesting.
He's an interesting fellow. He was one of our speakers, so we had a whole special presentation in the theater that he was able to share the Aboriginal sky lore stories and also learning about that culture and how, you know, their own society as well as their view of the night sky and sharing that. And then we had another person speak about how different cultures interpreted eclipses and so on. So there's a strong theme for each year. Of course, you also have all the meals and you have all the fun. There's activities and stuff. It's 3 days. But
is this an overnight? If they do the 3-day, they stay at
they
the park?
they can stay at the park or they can stay at a hotel locally. Okay. Their choice. And or if you happen to live in the area, then just go home. But it's all day for, you know, starts Friday evening, goes to Sunday around lunch, just before lunch, and we'll have 4 speakers, but a lot of things going on, and it's all inclusive for those that register. But there is that. There's also the Astronomy Club in that if they want to do the volunteerism, then they get more hands-on direct instruction from us as to how do you use this particular equipment, the telescopes we have?
Sure.
How do you do the public outreach? How do you interact with the public? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's also, my wife wrote this test, and it's a test for the Astronomy Club members that they can just at home research, get online, find all the answers, but it's designed to kind of cover all the basics of astronomy. And it's a structured way for somebody to learn the basics of astronomy at their own pace. And we're also part of the Astronomical League that then has all these programs that go from the most basic to the most incredibly difficult things you could ever think of, as far as observing programs. But they're structured programs. All of it is educational to help someone learn more about whatever the subject is, whether it's constellations or, like the crazy ones, are imaging quasars.
What is that?
Where you need a lot of specialized equipment just to even do it, let alone being able to then focus and do quasars. That's the research we did at the University of Florida as well. We had a long-running quasar research program.
What's a quasar?
Quasi-stellar radio source. It is basically, we now know that basically they are black holes that have something going on where a lot of material, probably other stars, fall into them. And then they outburst.
Does this involve quarks in any nature?
Not specifically.
Okay.
No.
Is this interstellar?
These are black holes in other galaxies that are like 13 billion light years away, farthest reaches of the universe, extremely far, extremely old. And it's these outbursts that makes them quasars. And for the longest time, we didn't know really what they were. You could detect them. Mm-hmm. What is it? I don't know. and it's one of those jokes. It's like, back then, they would just blame everything. Oh, that's a black hole. They didn't even really understand black holes. Oh, that's a black hole. That's a black hole. Well, in this case, it actually is. It's an ancient galaxy that has a supermassive black hole in which material falls into it.
That's cool.
And it is cool. And it's, I remember when I was in middle school and high school, learning about quasars, but then not knowing really what they were. It's only in the last 20 years that we've been finding out.
And that was Adam's TED Talk about quasars.
So, but the other programs are like, craters on the moon, learning them or sketching them, and it goes on and on. So there's a lot of educational outreach that we do, either directly or indirectly, that helps in learning and appreciating nature. What we do is natural as well. It's the natural night sky.
Some wonderful opportunities to get involved at Bays Mountain, whether through astronomy programming or through the naturalist programming. What a great conversation. I thank you both for being here, for your stewardship, for your work at Bays Mountain, and for sharing it with our youth and visitors. Is there any other things y'all would like to share with our listeners, upcoming events as we get into spring? I think we've covered a lot. Where folks can learn more about Bays Mountain Park and Planetarium.
You can learn the most if you come and visit.
Oh, good answer.
Yeah, all the right answers.
Oh, that's a good answer. Yes. We are remodeling the main Nature Center lobby area and gallery spaces.
Okay.
New exhibits to come.
Yes.
Very
really nice ones.
Very nice exhibits.
In-house.
Adam is
produced.
planning a new astronomy exhibit. My staff is working on a new lake exhibit, and our wonderful exhibit designers are putting it all together. I can't say enough how talented our exhibit staff is. We come at them with some wild and crazy ideas, and they always seem to make it happen. So
Yes. And they're great to work with, and we are lucky to have them.
Awesome. So you can experience it best by visiting. Where can guests learn more online about programs, tickets, and things of that nature?
baysmountain.com is our website, and then
Everything's in there.
everything's on there. And we also have a Facebook where we post updates about new programs and such. It's just Bays Mountain Park. I think the logo, the profile picture is our logo. So.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Tyler, Adam, I appreciate all you do for our community and your work with the park. And to our listeners, be sure to check out Leaders for a Litter-Free Tennessee on northeasttennessee.org for more information on what folks are doing around our region to protect the places we love. And for upcoming events and happenings in Northeast Tennessee, be sure to follow us on all the socials and check out our website at northeasttennessee.org, where there's more up here to do, see, and be when you meet me in Tennessee. Thanks for tuning in.